And we're live.
Hey
So
everybody, how are you guys doing? Yeah, sorry we didn't have a midweek stream because Heretic had something come up that made it so he wasn't able to stream on schedule. But yeah, we're here for the weekend stream, and it's gonna be a decent one in my opinion, or at least hopefully.
instead of
The
our
subject,
usual, sorry.
I was just gonna say, the subject at the very least is somewhat interesting.
hmm I mean, it's especially timely because I don't know if you guys have been following cryptocurrency these last few weeks, but they've exploded in value, just exploded. Bitcoin, as it says in the title, shot past 40,000. That's actually happened twice just this year, where it went up to 42,000, and then it went up to I think 41,000 again. Right now, it's at 38. It's at 38,000. I'm opening up my crypto wallet right now, and it's at 36 at the moment. But compared to where it was just a couple months ago, yeah, like this is freaking ridiculous. Just the extent to which it's completely skyrocketed.
People needing a medium of exchange in order to trade around the things that the state's trying to do at the moment. But yeah, so in response to that, someone by the name of let me John Tammy, I'm not entirely familiar with their work, or at the very least, if I am familiar with their work, I don't recognize, his name being attached to it. He's an editor at Forbes, though, and he decided to post an article titled "As Bitcoin Shoots Past $40,000, It Unequivocally Reminds Us That It's Not Money."
And his explanation for why it's not money is absolutely freaking it's below normie
It's
tier.
hilarious.
Just from how I don't even know where someone would get the idea that this would be an even plausible explanation as to what it is that money is and what it entails. It's so bad that I think it would even get you laughed out of a high school economics class.
This makes Peter Schiff's take on cryptocurrency look good in comparison.
Mhm.
And literally, the only reason Peter Schiff holds the positions that he does, it runs into contradiction. It runs into
ESO
conflict
We got
over
a
sent
the.
me
donation.
sneakers to Dan Schneider's
Ooh,
Foot
sweet.
Rituals. ESO takes sneakers welfare and give to those who actually need it. ESO Quickscope sneakers. ESO makes sneakers crash harder than Paul Walker. I got too much money and love sending these messages. Sneakers.
Oh, it's Asia sending another donation. I can't read it on stream for obvious reasons, but oh man,
I
those are
imagine it was pretty edgy.
it was pretty good. Let me see if I can't get a screenshot of the notification on Streamlabs so you can
All
read it out
right.
so you can read it out yourself. But yeah, it's really good. So, anyways, what were you saying?
I was just saying that Peter Schiff's position on cryptocurrency is informed entirely by the fact that he's the CEO of a major gold funding firm, hedge funding firm in the white market. But his claims about gold and cryptocurrency conflict with every principle that he otherwise claims to promote. So it's his what I'm trying to get at is his takes are the only ones even remotely close to approaching being as hot as the ones in this article. And the only reason he even promotes those, he even promotes the arguments like gold has intrinsic value and money needs intrinsic value, it is out of cognitive dissonance. It's because it's in his interest to promote those takes. But yeah, given that this is an editor at Forbes, it wouldn't surprise. I'm not at all surprised that somebody who works there as an editor he may very well have an interest to try and put out uh, anti-crypto propaganda, not even arguments against crypto, because as I'll demonstrate later in the stream, this is there's no way some of the arguments in this article could be made unless the person who is making them is being knowingly misleading. So, I mean, he either has a conflict of interest going on, or he just does not know anything about money. In which case, that's not a very good advertisement for state media. But it's definitely I would believe it. I would believe that they'd hire somebody to write about money who doesn't know anything about money, based on the fact that Marxism and Keynesianism are so popular in state academia.
Mm-hmm. Again, like I tried doing a quick look over of articles he's written in the past. Nothing really stuck out to me, probably because it was only like a very basic view, like for the last 2 months. But yeah, it seems like this guy's fairly prolific on Forbes. But this one is just like, I don't know if this article is any indication of quality of his writing. I can't imagine that it's very good. But anyways, I think we can really save most of our comments for when we actually get into the article. Should we start?
Oh yeah, if we were to go on, we would spoil some of the points that the person writing the article, John Tamney, attempts to get into himself. So we may as well just start.
I didn't see that end there. I just thought it was Tammy.
Yeah, I corrected myself as I was looking at it, because I did think it was Tammy too. I didn't realize it was an M and an N.
All right, so I'm just adjusting the screen so that people in the stream can see it better. So I'm going to read off the first 2 paragraphs. Imagine selling a house, car, or your skills as a carpenter to someone offering Bitcoin as payment. The obvious question posed to the buyer would be, which Bitcoin? The one that fetched 15,000 towards the end of 2017? The one that sold for a little above 3,000 1 year later? Or the one that exchanges for roughly 40,000 at present? Please think about the volatility of the speculation that is Bitcoin. Some naively describe the latter as money. They clearly misunderstood what money is.
No, you clearly don't understand what money is. You also clearly don't understand what Bitcoin is. Which Bitcoin? That's honestly kind of it's kind of perplexing he would even represent an exchange involving Bitcoin in that manner, to ask which Bitcoin. I don't even honestly know what his idea of what cryptocurrency is. I don't know what that is, if he's going to suggest that that's the way that an exchange with cryptocurrency would take place. But no. So right off the bat, we have to address sort of we talk about this at least once every stream for those who are new, but we need to talk about the cash nexus, because the thing that a lot of mainstream economic theorists, if you want to call them that, especially don't seem to recognize, is that money. The explanation he goes on to provide for money here is it's somewhat accurate, though there are problems with it. We'll get on to explaining in a bit. But money is essentially just it is a commodity which it doesn't have it doesn't have any major specialized utility. That's to say, it doesn't have any points of utility which certain people would have a use for, as opposed to others, generally speaking. And that causes it to become a medium of exchange in pursuit of specialized specialized interest and specialized commodities. Examples of this we could see in the real world, for instance, would be in isolated populations, prisons where literally there it is outlawed for anyone to be using money, cigarettes. I mean, it depends on the prison, but typically it's cigarettes. But cigarettes will emerge as money because everybody there has the same utility, roughly, for cigarettes. Thus, in that local economy, it can just be used as a means of trade. Mainstream economists, though, if they could even conceive of trying to think of money this way, they have to deny that it works. That they have to deny that this is what money is, up and down a blue streak, because if they accepted it, it would mean that money can't exist within a political economy. It would mean that money is something that emerges out of local communities as a means, and what counts as money in those it would depend on the community. The state can't just determine a district that's defined as an economy and then say this economy exchanges with this good. The sort of fiat system that we refer to as the cash nexus, which is basically in order to buy things, the only way you could legally trade for them would be to trade with legally recognized partners of the state, so licensed white market firms, and if you associate with them, they can only buy certain brands, or they can only associate with certain other partners of the state, in order to continue obtaining a supply of goods in their store. All of them can only obtain loans or associate in finances with white market banks, so banks that are sponsored by the government, that are connected to the Federal Reserve, and who are institutionally privileged by certain loaning laws, or aspects of corporate law. And because the state, so essentially the state socially engineers an interest to use fiat. That's the reason that it's seen as having a somewhat consistent value in the white market. It's not because there's any utility for it. Literally, it's just the government. The government defends a bank which prints notes, and then that bank loans out some of these notes to investment firms, and uses that to reinforce what we call the cash nexus. And that system is defended, of course, by various barriers to entry, such as licensing laws, leverage, firms being put at disproportionate leverage compared to others in the political arbitration framework by corporate law, usury restrictions, how the state defines property lines, and how the state grants property. The state can, because within the white market, the only property that's recognized as being legitimate, whether or not it is actually ethical, is just whichever party or whichever claim the state decides is legitimate. So that's how you get things like eminent domain seizures, which have benefited corporations like Walmart and Amazon immensely at the expense of competitors. And then that's, if you want to get outside of the United States, that's not even, I've gone over this extensively in past essays, but that's, if you want to go outside of the nation, well, then there are the international trade cartels, which monopolize the supply chains and then make sure that the way that supply for certain resources enters into nations is only into the hands of a small handful of state-sponsored corporations in order to try to maintain the system.
Mm-hmm. Now, I just wanted
So,
to. Sorry.
All I was going to say is that is actually the basis for why fiat has utility, because in a sense the author is raising an interesting point, which is to the people who argue cryptocurrency is a form of sound money, or I guess just addressing the sound money theorists in general. How come fiat has a somewhat consistent market price? Well, it doesn't. The entire fiat system is just upheld by state coercion.
Mm-hmm. And I like the comment that Albedo made that directly addresses the argument that is being put forward here. Which dollar are you giving me? The one from 1913, the one from 1971, 2008, or the one from 2021? And that's addressing the argument that he made in the first paragraph, where he asked which Bitcoin, the one valued this at that point in time, which is such an absolutely absurd argument that you could use that to. That's really not really a criticism of Bitcoin or even just money in general, but just a question of pricing in general. I can easily see this being put forward by a Marxist of saying like, oh, which candy bar are you giving me? The one that's valued $2 today, the one that's valued $1 just 10 years ago, or the one that was valued 5 cents in 1908? Which one is it?
That's why it's such a bizarre question to me.
It really is.
Especially for somebody who claims to be an economist.
I don't know if this guy claims to be an economist or not, but he definitely claims to be a writer because he's writing on Forbes. But you can apply this argument, or you can apply this kind of criticism to literally anything, and that would really only work if you unironically believed in a kind of intrinsic value, which is of course why I think that a Marxist would unironically put this forward. I'm not calling him a Marxist. I'm just saying like this is an argument that would be very consistent of Marxists for them to make within their own internal reasoning and framework. It seems to me that he is trying to put forward like a Peter Schiff style idea of the intrinsic value of money, and trying to argue that because people don't value something, or there isn't a clear agreement on how something ought to be valued, that therefore disqualifies it from being money, not recognizing that how volatile something is, being a qualifier or disqualifier from it, is entirely arbitrary. To say nothing of how to say nothing of that how something is valued can be very volatile. It's very dynamic depending on how the economy is going to function at any given point in time. How people are going to value certain things is always going to change, not just from like year to year, but day to day, minute to minute. And I think we've been talking a lot about Lachmann, Ludwig Lachmann, I believe his name is. I'm terrible with names. I'm sorry. And the observation he made that supply and demand curves are not static in any given point in time and are often shifting from minute to minute as people's preferences and information change dynamically. And as such, there is no
Every firm has a different calculation for the market's equilibrium. That's specifically the argument that he's making.
And I would extend this forward to say that every individual is going to have a different equilibrium, as their needs and preferences will often shift minute for minute. You might be have your heart set on getting chocolate ice cream, but as soon as you get to the parlor, you're just like, that other flavor looks pretty good too. And as such, your marginal preferences are going to change constantly. The same is going to be true with any commodity that anyone interacts with or uses ever, and this includes money because money is a commodity. Now, understanding this, all we're really observing with Bitcoin and any other cryptocurrency is that how people's preferences and desires for or against crypto change is just a little bit more significant than it would otherwise be in the past. So,
well, the
this is
reason
a,
that the reason that cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin are so quote unquote volatile is you're attempting to treat them as a speculative asset in the white market political economy. And that's fine. That's not ultimately what cryptocurrencies are. They're not a speculative asset. They have various points of utility, which essentially make it so they're designed to replace the white market financial system. The only reason they have that this goal hasn't been accomplished yet in its entirety, despite states having serious problems because of because of the existence of various cryptocurrencies, is because of the fact that the state still has a monopoly on outlets of communication and how people trade with their resources, which wink wink, that's about to come to an end pretty soon here. But um but yeah, you're trying to treat a form of sound money as though it's an investment. I'm not denying that there's any sort of volatility if we're looking at cryptocurrency from the perspective of the fiat economy, the white market political economy. But yeah, I suppose a better way to explain what's going on is that's what happens when you try to treat money, an actual free market money, as though it's something which is supposed to be money in every single economy, as though it's supposed to have the same value to everyone in the world as a type of money. Obviously, money doesn't work that way, which is why people who attempt to point to various types of fiat as being what money is supposed to be, inevitably, whether or not they want to explicitly acknowledge this or whether or not it's implied in their argument, have to operate around some standard of intrinsic value, at least when it comes to monetary principles. Because obviously the economy of, say, Florida is going to be vastly different than the economy of Alaska. So communities in both of those areas are going to develop different standards of money.
and the economy of sorry, I'm just going to say, like, the economy of Tallahassee is going to be different than the economy of Miami.
Economies of neighborhoods within Tallahassee are going to be different from one another. Doesn't mean that trade can't exist. Obviously, you can just exchange according to what counts as money in these different economies. But yeah, they're not going to all have the same standard of what counts as money, because they all have different people and they all have vastly different environments that are more likely to inform different incentives.
All right. Anyways, I think we've dug on this point a bit. So let's go ahead and scroll down some. Let me just see if it looks good on my screen. more. So reading off, money is a low entropy measure that facilitates the exchange of real things. That's it. Money is an agreement about value, meaning an agreed upon measure of value that makes it possible for goods and services with actual market value to be exchanged. Per Adam Smith, the sole use of money is to circulate consumable goods. Money that
Holy shit.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna. Do you want to stop there?
Okay. No, you can go ahead and read the next paragraph.
Money that bounces around in a value sense is no longer money precisely because its value is changing all the time. Think about it. No one actual exchanges money, pays in money, lends or borrows money. In each instance, actual market goods are being exchanged. You sell your labor for dollars precisely because the dollars can be exchanged for other market goods. You sell your car for dollars on the assumption that you can attain goods and services of equal value for the car sold. This hopefully explains why would-be currencies that have valuations defined by volatility very quickly cease to exist as money. They do because those who provide tangible market goods or services in return for money can't trust that the volatile money will command equal value in the marketplace.
Okay, so responding to the paragraph you just read, that's kind of why it's important to take the cash nexus into consideration. Because, I mean, in a sense, that's at least an important point to touch upon. It's not something that Austrians have taken into consideration. It's just say if you want to buy a car because of the existence of the state, specifically at this point, the state controlling commerce, communication, and the very most of the economy still to a great extent because of no challenges being placed to the latter two monopolies. You can't really get a car without like going to a white market dealership. You can't really get, say, a coffee drink without going to a white marketplace that sells coffee drinks. I mean, you can, strictly speaking, you can go to the gray market, obviously, or the black market, but the state will harass people who do that. And of course, various aspects of the white market, which are still monopolized around communication, actively disincentivize that sort of behavior, like how the proprietary infrastructure of the internet disincentivizes people from not using YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this isn't I mean, obviously, it can't really be a type of sound money if the state's using coercion to make it. So, in order to associate with most types of firms, you have to use dollars, or you have to use whatever standard of fiat being imposed by the state. That's why you got to subvert the institutions that allow the state to do this. That doesn't mean cryptocurrencies aren't a type of money. It just means that counter economists have. It just means agorists have some more work to do.
Mm-hmm.
As for what was being described in the first paragraph that you were reading, yeah. So this is something that neoclassicals and monetarists in particular like to promote. It's an attempt to rationalize the disconnect between application prices and how marginal utility actually works, in the sense that Lockman described. Even a lot of Austrians make this mistake. But money is an agreement about value. This is something that bugged me even back when I was a statist and didn't really know a whole lot about economic theory. When did I ever have a meeting where I sat down with every person in the world and decided with them that I was going to use dollars?
I think you did that. I know when you did, because I was there when you made that agreement. We did that when we were asked to sign the social contract.
Exactly. It's just the logic behind the social contract argument, but applied to money.
Pretty much. Like
And
trying to. Sorry, I just wanted to add something here. Money and agreement about value. I don't even know who it is that people are actually going to be making an agreement with. Are you making an agreement with the vendor? And even so, like, what if that's the case? Then what qualifies as money could be anything at any point for any reason at any amount.
means
But it sounds like
utility means that utility isn't a factor in what counts as money, even though the only even though in order for money to exist, as the author rightly points out, it needs to be a commodity which isn't particularly specialized in meaning that everybody sort of has the same utility for it, and everybody has sort of the same uh, relative sense of value for it. And the only real way that that could happen is if it's a commodity where everybody roughly has the same utility for it in a given economy.
although what's funny is something that JC Armitage and Albedo are pointing out in the comments is that if money is just an agreement about value and people just decide what the value of money is at any given point in time, then this understanding without any differentiation between a fiat currency or any like sound money is necessarily going to create the situation that those two are pointing out in the comments where Weimar Germany could have easily just prayed the hyperinflation away.
Yeah, I've pointed that out in past videos as well, and thanks for bringing that up. Why then, if what counts as money or the value of money is just something that we agree to, why do markets even exist in the first place then? If what counts as money is just something that I can sort of decide, why would I ever need to trade anything?
Pretty
Or
much.
well,
Like
why? How could trade happen? I should say.
it's very simple. You're just able to go up to someone and just say like, "Hey, buy my snake oil. I'm selling it for $600 bazillion." And because there is no way to determine what the actual value of money is, the other person you're talking to is just forced to either say is forced to just shrug and just say, "Okay."
Yeah, why would stock market crashes happen if
Uh,
that was the case?
because the people who were praying for a market crash were praying harder than the people who didn't want the market to crash. It's just
It's insane.
it's at this point we're just like at pure economic democracy where bad things only happen because bad people just want them to happen more than the
We're
people who
like
want good things to
economic
happen.
religion. We're like economic religion. Seriously. That's at this point, it turns monetary. It turns any observation or any principle that one could put forward in monetary theory into a secular version of God did it.
Yeah, anyway, should we keep going? Keep scrolling?
Sure, but I was also going to point out in that note that it's weird the author would describe money as a low entropy measure. First of all, that implies cardinal utility, in that there are like that you can actually measure utility as though it's some sort of unit that can be represented on a graph or can be represented in a mathematical sense, which is that's not surprising. If this guy's going to cite Adam Smith, then it's not surprising that he would make that mistake because that's one of the main problems with the neoclassical school is cardinal is the embrace of cardinal utility. But even on that note, why is entropy the only thing that counts as a measure of utility for money? Is scarcity not important? What about fungibility or durability? Well, I guess durability is part of entropy, but those are all things that are kind of important if you're looking at finances from an even remotely sophisticated perspective, or if you're just trying to manage your own resources. You care about you care about how divisible it is. You care about its scarcity. You care about whether or not you're going to have it tomorrow. Care about whether or not it'll be able to withstand, I don't know, a rainstorm, or whether it's just going to get washed away if it rains. It seems like entropy is they're just sort of on its face. There are things more important than entropy for what counts as money.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it also goes back into the criticism I had earlier, where how d- not only does how one define entropy, but also how much entropy, assuming you could come up with a definition, is tolerable for it to qualify as money. Is a moderately acceptable level of entropy a disqualifier? High level? What if the thing was completely without entropy at all? Does it then cease to be money? And
Yeah,
how
it's
would you
just an
even?
arbitrary it's just an arbitrary category, I'm sure, that the author made up. So at some point later in the article you can say, well, cryptocurrencies only exist in digital programs, duh.
Well, I mean, that's going to be the dollar in the not too distant future. So I wonder if that's gonna. I wonder if he's going to change his tune about that. Anyways, let's go ahead and I'll read off the next part.
Yeah, sure.
All of the above explains why Iran's rial long ago ceased existing as a monetary medium. Having been devalued 3,500 times since 1971, producers no longer trusted it. How could they? Trade is products for products, but with the rial trade would have always been products exchanged for fewer products. To sell for rial was to accept a haircut as a buyer with rial. The toman has replaced the rial in Iran, but the relatively much more stable US dollar is the currency of choice in the Middle Eastern country. Money is a quiet consequence.
But
People.
But with the real trade would have always been products exchanged for fewer products. Yeah, this isn't even bad econ at this point. This is English this guy's first language?
I would assume so. I mean, that's a fairly Anglo-sounding name. Trade is products for products, but with the real trade would have always been products exchanged for fewer products. That kind of sounds like he's trying to make a point, but it's so grossly oversimplified that it's like a meme that's been passed around so many times that the image has just become distorted and pixelated, JPEG'd to death. I feel like that's what's happening here. That he's trying to like yeah, he's trying to make something that makes sense to the lowest common denominator of intellect, but it just doesn't make sense anymore. I think what he's trying
But
to say, I think what he's trying to say is that as people holding on to reals, their actual purchasing power greatly diminishes, which is accurate, but I don't think it's pertinent to the point that he's trying to make. That's not a question. The problem with the real has nothing to do with volatility. It's it's the devaluing. It's because the currency is being printed to death.
yeah. So since 1971, they changed out the real for the toman. What else happened around that period of time? The sort of unipolar political economy stopped operating around the Bretton Woods system, and OPEC was established. That has absolutely nothing to do with a change in the sort of fiat regime imposed by the Iranian government.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just a coincidence. Anyways, going on a little further, money is, let me just highlight this so you can follow along. Money is a quiet consequence. People produce. They've long produced, and money was the logical consequence of production. Those with market goods needed a way to exchange their produce with other producers of market goods, hence money. Now, is it
Hence
just me,
why
or
money is not fiat.
this, I don't know why, but this kind of reads to me like money is just prescribed onto society.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. Hence why money is not fiat, or hence why fiat is not money, because fiat is literally just prescribed onto society. The financial institutions that supply it into the market literally do not exist because of market demand. They exist because they're established by state institutions, and those state institutions give out, and one of the state institutions, the central bank, gives out loans to the gives out loans to politically partnered firms, which then issue it out to various aspects of the white market. That's literally not money, even by the standard that's been laid out here.
It's I mean, I don't really have anything much more to add, so let me just I'm just going to scroll down so we can get to the next paragraph. Oh, this is the end of the article. I was not expecting that, actually.
Real money. No, there's a bit more to it. Few
Is
more
there?
yeah,
Oh yeah, there is.
a few more paragraphs.
Sorry, I just thought that ad meant that it was at the bottom. Anyways, real money is rarely discussed simply because there's no reason to discuss it. Money that's regularly
That,
talked about due to
that's
its
fucking hilarious. But yeah, finish the rest of this paragraph. That's hilarious, though. Anyone even say that?
money that's regularly talked about due to its lurches in value is the equivalent of basketball players routinely talking about the length of the inch, and football players about the time in a second. Neither would. An inch just is. A second just is. Each is a measure that, if shrunk inch or expanded second, wouldn't make a player taller or faster. The inch and second are quiet. They're low entropy. The noise or the excitement is a consequence of tall basketball players and fast football players. That's what's low entropy confirms the high entropy reality.
Oh my god, that got significantly worse as you read the rest of that paragraph. But yeah, just what I was objecting to at first is, are you fucking kidding me? Monetary theory is one of the most controversial aspects of the study. There are internal debates. If you were to just take the neoclassicals, there's internal debate over their monetary theory. If you look at monetarists, there's internal debate over their monetary principles. If you look at Austrian monetary theory, which is literally just what I was explaining earlier, communities, money being an emergent property of communities, and people organizing around their own interests, their own utility. Uh, there are internal debates there, even though that's literally just arguing over like what counts as an axiom. Well, all arguments are, I guess you could say, what counts as an axiom, but just different approaches to what entails the axiom trying to be put forward. Like, is general equilibrium theory valid or not? Um, does fiat count as a type of money? Let's say not really a position a lot of Austrians defend. Peter Schiff would, but
Is Peter Schiff an Austrian, though?
claims to be, but considering that he thinks that intrinsic value exists, I'm gonna have to press X to doubt.
Mm-hmm.
getting on to the second part of this paragraph, what is he even? So this is actually dumb beyond the study of economics. Um, if you are promoting principles, essentially he's attempting to rationalize presuppositional aspects of his own methodology. So, why does he have to, why do certain aspects of money function the way that they do? If, that on its face sort of conflicts with the neoclassical's explanation of it. It just is. Shut up.
Beautiful. I mean, it seems to me like he's trying to put forward an argument that money is just some kind of static variable that exists in the economy. It just exists, and everything. There's no such thing as. I don't even know if he would say that inflation could even occur as a concept because everything is always going to be measured according to dollars, and how a dollar is valued is just some static variable that exists in nature. Much in the same way, like
Yeah,
how long is an inch or how long is a second never actually changes. Now,
yeah. Comparing,
whether or not an inch is long or short is arbitrary, but the actual length that is measured by a second is not going to change. So therefore, the amount of value that is being measured by a Bitcoin ought to never change. The fact that it does change ever means that it can't be called money. And the point earlier about the real is that the real can't be used as money because it changed.
even though it was used as money for however long it was being used as money. But just what I was going to say here is the example of a basketball game, comparing that to an economy seems rather inappropriate. First of all, economies, as noted earlier, are not imposed from the top down. They're an emergent property of social organization. And this example sort of assumes that this is the case. If you go into a basketball game, for example, you have your team. There's always going to be just another team. There's a very strict set of things that you can do while you're playing the game. Uh, there's a rigidly defined there's a rigidly defined set of rules. What counts as a point is something that exists outside of whether what the players do or what they care for, what they consider it to be. So it seems like he's constructing a framework that's designed specifically to lead to he's creating an equivalence that doesn't really work. It's just designed to lead to a conclusion that's not logically justifiable by equating two different things that are transparently not compatible with one another.
Mhm.
And but that does have some interesting, this like you mentioned earlier. I guess we don't have to speculate anymore about whether or not he sees economies as something which are planned, because he, at least in regards to monetary theory, he quite obviously does. If he's going to use a basketball game as an example of an economic framework.
Mhm. I suppose a good way to identify how I think he understands money is if you were to try to compare how much fried chicken you can exchange for one watermelon, you would just find a guy who would just point out that's worth $1, and that's worth $2. So that's what their exchange is. You get you give two fried chicken for the watermelon. Completely random example, of course, but I think you get the idea that I'm trying to convey. Anyway, should I continue to the next part?
Sure.
All right. Yeah, give me a second here. This is close enough. Bitcoin
What's
isn't.
low end? Sorry.
I was just
Okay, go ahead.
sorry. I was just having trouble adjusting the screen. Anyways, Bitcoin isn't quiet. It's loud. It's a distraction. People literally watch its movements in market value with bated teeth. They talk endlessly about it. Will it go up? Will it come crashing down? What's watched with great constancy from a value standpoint is no longer money. How could it be? Think once
Already
again if.
explained. Already
Sorry.
explained the just in response to that paragraph. How could it be? Well, already explained the error the author's making fundamentally, but just wanted to focus on the previous paragraph. Something stood out to me. What's low entropy confirms the high entropy reality. That, that's a hilarious statement.
I don't know what that I don't know what that means either. Uh, I think we're trying to say like, high entropy reality is in reference to Bitcoin being quote unquote high entropy.
Well,
But
yeah,
it's kind of
but
funny because what he's talking about in this top paragraph is just straight up not true. I mean, sorry. Yeah, there are a lot of Bitcoin and crypto speculators in general. No one's denying that at all. But to suggest that there aren't also speculators in other currencies, that people don't watch with bated breath to see how the value of the dollar compares to the value of the euro or the yen or any other fiat currency that currently exists. That is not true. People do that's a I think that's like a multi-billion-dollar industry. People
yeah,
just
currency
speculating.
speculation.
Yeah, people engage in currency speculation. I was blanking on what the term was. So, I mean, if you're going to be adding another criteria for what money is, it seems that like he's adding on to like certain criteria without really like
They're
listing it
utilizing
out.
their money. Fuck.
What
Okay.
is
Um,
the FBI
yeah,
breaking in?
no. I dropped something, but just what I was going to say though is okay. I lost my train of thought. Admittedly, um, yeah. It seems as though yeah. I'm sorry. Part of my what that noise was part of my desk falling apart.
That's
But uh
concerning.
yeah, it's a part that I was like uh resting my feet on, and it fucking fell to the floor. I'll fix that after the stream.
All right,
But yeah, I had something I wanted to say, but because that happened, it fucking startled me.
it's all right. Should I read the next paragraph?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Think once again about the selling of a house, car, or carpentry services for Bitcoin, as evidenced by the fact that the speculation has doubled in price in the past month alone. Transactions referred by Bitcoin would logically result in an incredibly unhappy buyer or seller. That's the case because monetary transactions once again speak to goods and services transactions. I'm sorry, are we determining whether is another criteria for what qualifies as money, whether or not the people who use it are happy or unhappy? What is that?
Yeah,
What is that paragraph?
yeah, I have no idea. It seems like we've gone over this already, though. If utility didn't factor into the equation, then how could hyperinflation happen?
Mhm.
And why is it that we see money emerging in if money is prescribed, then why do we see it emerging in communities where money is being explicitly outlawed by by whatever whatever the policies are of the group running the isolated community or keeping them isolated, prison population.
Mhm. Imagine if on December 8th a homeowner entered a contract to sell his house for 50 Bitcoin on January 8th. The buyer on January 8th would be none too happy. the Bitcoin in the contract would command roughly double the market goods that they did at the time of contract. Conversely, imagine the owner of a Porsche agreeing to sell it for 2 Bitcoin on February 8th and the competitor offering to contract an arm war for 1 Bitcoin on January 8th, the second one on April 8th. After job's completion, based on speculation's volatility, the car seller and carpenter would be devastated in February. Indeed, a speculation that doubles in value in a month could just as easily halve in value by February. Lest we forget, Bitcoin exchanged for many more dollars in 2017 than it did in 2018. Will a carpenter entering into a long-term contract measured in Bitcoin be happy or sad in 3 months? No one knows. This is just kind of tacking on to the point we discussed previously, where it seems that what qualifies as money now is going to be entirely dependent on whether or not it makes people happy or sad, which is honestly, that reads kind of like a parody piece, something that you would write
Yeah,
to mock
this is
monetarists. It's like, don't use Bitcoin, guys, because it just makes you sad. Well, not necessarily,
you don't
because
agree that it's money.
I mean, if you're going to be making a point that, well, it is possible that people could speculate on the value of Bitcoin and then miscalculate, yeah, that definitely could happen. Would it make them sad? Sure, but no one coerced them into making that agreement. There's no force being applied. Sure, you could argue that they lost value because of a poor miscalculation. That would make people sad, yeah, but there's nothing fundamentally unethical about any sort of contract. Not to mention that the exact opposite could happen, where they could speculate correctly based on information that they may have due to personal research or even just like a lucky guess. And as a result, they end up selling their goods for a significantly higher value than they otherwise would have gotten because the agreed upon price has, or rather, the agreed upon monetary amount that is being exchanged has now increased in value. So now they actually sold it for way more than it was previously worth.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add to that. I think I refuted well, I pointed out the problems with how this person seems to be approaching the concept of money earlier in the article. I just read the next paragraph, and that's a fucking nuclear take.
All right, let's begin. To be clear, interest in Bitcoin is an understandable response to government money, including the dollar, that has been particularly unreliable into 2000s. The problem is that Bitcoin offers no refuge from currency unreliability. The latter is a statement of the obvious, as evidenced by the fact that Bitcoin devotees so closely track its value in dollars. Implicit there is that the faux money is a moving target as a measure of value, which means it's not money. Furthermore, Bitcoin itself is measured in dollars. Get it? The aspiring monetary form is measuring itself in dollars, which means it's
It's
a
not.
non-dollar dollar that magnifies the greenback's worst qualities. Translated, holders of dollars have been whiplashed by volatility far less than Bitcoin owners have over the years.
Yeah, you don't know what Bitcoin is, or you don't know the economics of cryptocurrency, the person writing this article.
No, clearly not. It's just,
I mean,
where do you even begin?
that's something you could do with Bitcoin. You could use it to speculate compared to the market price of a fiat currency, or sort of political market price of a fiat currency. But you could do the same thing with the U.S. dollar to any other currency, or any other currency in the world. Does that mean that the U.S. dollar, by his own standards, isn't a type of money?
Yeah, actually. And just applying his own standards, the one he's laid out in this article rather haphazardly, it's very clear that the only kind of money that can currently exist is one that maintains a static value at all times for every reason ever. Now,
I
with the
love
U.S.
how I'm sorry.
I was just
What
going
were
to
you gonna
remark
say?
on a comment that JC Armitage made that, yeah, I meant to remark on, but it slipped my mind. He said, can't the makes you sad argument just as easily be used against any kind of fiat currency like the US dollar? Well, not just fiat currency, but any kind of commodity speculation where the variable or where the price could vary at any point in time for any reason. So basically, any commodity speculation at all, ever.
Which is just what I was about to touch upon. How at the beginning of those two paragraphs, the author points out the dollar has been particularly unreliable in the 2000s. No, 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 Bigga, you are not going to say that you are not going to insinuate that the value of the US dollar is volatile when the entire point of your article has been to argue that cryptocurrency can't be money because it's not volatile, and to argue in contrast with it that the dollar is a type of money. You are not going to just say that and then not expect us to raise our eyebrow a bit.
Mm-hmm. Now
But
let's just go into. Should we go on to the last paragraph because yeah, it's pretty nuclear.
yeah, sure.
Ah, crap! I think I did a thing. Give me a second here. We're fine. Never mind. None of this is to say Bitcoin owners won't make money for owning them, but real money isn't speculated on. What's a measure is constant. Bitcoin is a speculation, which means it's not money. Period. Now, you saw me pause when I finished that first sentence. That's because I was so stunned that he overtly said exactly what I was speculating that he was trying to insinuate, that I actually had to read it over a second time just to make sure I heard it correctly. Real money isn't speculated upon, even though currency exchanges are a thing and have been for years. Hell, people were doing it in the gray market in the
Seriously.
Roman. People were doing it in black and gray markets in the Roman Empire because they knew that the empire was debasing their own currency. So what they did was they hoarded older denaries and older coins, or even just like present coins, just stashed them away because they knew that their value would absolutely increase as the next set of denaries would get printed and they would be much more worthless.
Yeah, what if people just have a different specialized interest for whatever is considered to be money by a different economy or a different community, or even within that community, which generally utilizes it as a type of money? What if someone wants to speculate with it compared to assets in another economy?
I was just going
Does
down.
that mean it's not money?
Yeah, I think so. And I was just scrolling down here to see if there's a
Because
like
if
a
that's
comment section. It doesn't look like there is.
yeah, I scrolled down briefly too. It's just a bunch of advertisements. But I was just going to add onto that though. Money would not be able to exist if it functioned if what counted as money was even remotely close to what the author of this article is trying to describe.
Could you? Yeah, you. The only way that money could possibly exist in this guy's mind is that it had zero volatility at all. It was just completely static. He wants money to be a unchanging thing that never alters in value as a result of inflation or deflation. It just consistently remains zero and only increases in supply in as much as wealth is created in the economy and dollars or any other currency can be used to value that. Now, how you would go about doing that? No. Uh, I'm not even gonna try to figure out how that's done. It's not even that
Yeah,
important. It's not even that important either. But it's just he his standard for what qualifies as money is so unbelievably narrow just from a purely economic standpoint, that nothing that ever existed ever would ever be able to qualify as money. We're kind of
He
entering a
didn't
no we're kind
even,
of entering a no true Scotsman kind of thing, where there's no such
yeah.
thing as true money because, well, the dollar has changed in value, the real has changed in value, the peso has changed in value, gold has changed in value. What hasn't changed
Yeah,
in value?
at no point in this article I noticed did the author even attempt to demonstrate why these standards he was laying out were necessarily true, or attempting to sort of lay out why this had to be the case. And in the section which was, in an actually well written essay, is supposed to be reserved for making an attempt to do so, he just kind of glossed over that by saying, "It just is. It's just the way it is. Shut up."
It is just is. You don't believe me?
I had
That's
to
just
do a double. I had to do a double take when I first read that, because I've read we've watched a lot of shitty video essays, and we've read a lot of stupid articles, but I've never seen an article in the section where the author is supposed to be demonstrating their case just dismiss that point entirely by saying, well, that's just the way it is. It just is.
I mean, at that point, I don't even think we need to tell our audience that that's a complete tautology. Things are
Yeah,
true
well,
because it is.
it also raises into question, and this is what I was talking about at the beginning of the stream. It raises into question the intent of the author, because at this point, it reads almost as if they're attempting to rationalize principles that they're putting forward to themselves more than the actual audience. It comes off like cognitive dissonance.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's
because
exactly what's happening here.
because someone who's not operating around, you can easily tell the difference, because cognitive people who are operating around cognitive dissonance, they don't really, well, they provide explanations, but they provide those explanations in a framework much like this, where it's, well, that's just the way it is, but why that's the case, or how, or why this is necessarily true, is never really an explanation for those important aspects of their epistemology. It's never really provided, or why it explains more compared to my attempt to explain reality, or why it even conflicts. There's never an explanation provided. And you'll see this a lot with, especially within the realm of trying to talk about ethical dilemmas with people who are promoting certain political perspectives, or they see social organization um, as just policies created by the state, or whatever outcome is going to happen is determined entirely by uh, within the framework of what policy is going to be pursued by a given party. They argue a lot like this. We need a fair wage because the state is because the state creates fair wages. Um, well, we need to kick all the brown people out because brown people do bad things, I guess.
They take our gerbs.
Problems with my attempts to explain why this is the case, or evidence that sort of disproves this. Well, that's if you don't like it, leave. Shut up.
And yeah, I like what J.C. Armitage says. What a surprise! The article has no comment section. These types of websites remove comment sections entirely to stop people from calling their BS out on their own website. Yeah, that's probably why they changed their format from just articles that were contained on to their own pages to things where you scroll down and there's another article. That way they can conceal the
Honestly, it's
fact that they
kind
got
of
rid of their that way they can conceal the fact that they got rid of their own comment sections because they don't like being called out by their own readers.
Honestly, it's kind of funny watching boomers attempt to rationalize cryptocurrency or attempt to explain the perceived problems with it. There's really only like a handful of different arguments that they have, and this article didn't present something that I haven't already seen before. But yeah, it would be kind of adorable, honestly. Kind of like how kind of like when Marxists think that they've found a solution to the calculation argument. If it wasn't for the fact that they're actively promoting misinformation that can arguably be kind of dangerous and can lead to people like fucking their lives up, I would find it adorable if it wasn't for that.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like a oh, what was it? What was that video of those that African militia giving an AK to a chimpanzee?
Yeah,
I know that video was
I think
I know
that's
that
from a
video was
movie.
staged and all, but it is kind of funny until you realize that the thing is a deadly loaded weapon and really doesn't know what it's doing, and it's just dangerous. It's a terrible idea, but it is a dangerous idea when taken seriously.
Well, it's not so much that it's dangerous, as we've pointed out at this point. The victory of libertarianism is inevitable. Someone should remake that transhumanism meme with that theme. I know there's a couple good artists in the back alley. I'd love to see that,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's not so much a threat as or dangerous as it is just kind of annoying, and it could lead to people operating around information that could lead to them screwing up their lives by like destroying their savings, for instance. That's
All
that's
right,
more what that's more what I meant by that.
all right. Anyways, let's go ahead and wrap up the stream right now.
Fair enough.
Not much is happening in the comments, so it's not really much to respond to here.
All right. Well, before we go, I guess I will just say that I'm starting to write content again. A part of the reason that I stopped was it was in part because I wasn't really feeling like writing more as much as I was actually speculating IRL in the gray market and trying to get my own situation worked out. But yeah, the other reason is the next video it's the response video of all response videos on libertarianism. I'm going over 20 to 25 uh different like common statist arguments or just general anti-libertarian arguments in some philosophical regard, and refuting them each in a very detailed way, more detailed than has ever been done, at least that I've seen in an essay previously. So yeah, it may take like a week or two to actually finish that up, but also, I could have done that before, but I really fucking don't like making response videos at this point. And yeah, so I guess it's a bit of a motivation issue as well, in part. The point is, I'm back at it. It'll be like an hour to an hour and a half when it's done. And after that, don't. I may make a response video, or I may respond to other content people have put out. But I'm not going to make like a video which exists to respond to another person's like arguments against libertarianism for a very, very long time, if ever. Because the point of this video that I'm writing is basically if I encounter something like "What about the roads?" or "The state creates property," to just link this and not have to fucking deal with it.
Yeah, and yeah, I can understand the appeal, and I look forward to seeing it. On the plus side, my script is done. Still going through a little bit of proofing, but the video might be done not too long from now. So yeah, look forward to that. The video is going to be. I think I've talked about this before. What is it called? What should you get the coronavirus vaccine?
Oh, that's gonna be a spicy one. Mighty. Yeah, expect for the back alley to go through some trouble after that for a little bit, because I'd imagine YouTube's probably gonna yeet that really quick.
Hmm. Anyways, yeah, let's go ahead and wrap up the stream. Thank you everyone for stopping by, and we'll see you on Tuesday or Wednesday.